Good morning, beloveds. I hope you're having as much fun watching the Olympics as I am. I think I've decided that the ice dancing is my favorite because it's the least stressful of all of the events. I love to watch the speed skating, and the snowboarding's kind of fun, and I love all the ice skating, but ice dancing, yeah. Partly because it leans more into the artistic than the rest of them. Because everybody else is there now doing, quads and quints. And so they're really leaning into the athleticism. And sometimes I think it may be at the cost of the artistry of it. And yet there's ice dancing where they're not allowed to do jumps. And so while it is an extremely athletic sport, it's still beautiful. So... all right, it is February 13th. Our title is There Is No Resistance in Me, I Let God Act. And our psalm, because we are still doing psalms, is Lord, who shall abide in thy tabernacle, who shall dwell in thy holy hill? They that walketh uprightly and worketh righteousness and speak the truth in their heart. And that is Psalm 15, 1 and 2. As I say, go read the psalm. If the power of God is greater than the assumed power of evil, then it is up to us to prove it. Too many people say they believe that God is omnipotent and continue to demonstrate unhappiness, illness, and lack. The fact is that if they really believed in it, they would prove it in their own experience. One of the reasons for failure in proving our principle is an unconscious resistance to spiritual things. Often, we are unaware that we have this resistance and thus seek alibis for our lack of good. There's a simple way of removing this block to spiritual demonstration. It is affirming that God in people doth the work. It is the knowing that the infinite mind thinks through our minds at every instant, and its ideas are flowing through us into form. The righteous are those who let God work through them for the accomplishment of good. I believe that this is God's universe and that God's mind releases through me its perfect ideas at every instant. I believe that I am the creation of infinite mind, and therefore I am open and receptive to all ideas born of God. There is nothing in my consciousness which refutes the things of spirit. There is no resistance to God and God's good. I am now consciously receptive to the divine inflow of truth. I accept it, I assimilate it, I pass it on to my fellow people in joy and delight. I let God work in my mind, my heart, and my affairs. Okay, there's a lot in this, and I'm going to go back through it, but I have something on my mind, because just before I got on live, I was reading about Pauli Murray. I've never heard of Pauli Murray. I'm sure a lot of people have never heard of Pauli Murray, because that was the point of the article. And I read all of the article that they had posted on Facebook. I didn't follow the link and read the rest of it because she was in law school and she made a bet with a professor about how to take down the Jim Crow laws. And it turns out she was right. Apparently she wrote her thesis on that, and then 10 years later, her professor was in something and went, hey, wait a minute, dug her thesis out, and they used it as a basis of an article to take down the separate but equal. Because they had up to that point been focusing on the equal, and she went, let's focus on the separate. And I think that's where our work is, to focus on the separate, because it's not true. It's not true. We are not separate. Everyone's good is tied to everyone else's good. And so for us to make that demonstration of the all good, to create a world that works for everyone, we have to focus on the separate. Or rather, we have to focus on the untruth of the separate. Because there are still a whole lot of people in this world that are focused on 1/8 of a centimeter. That's how deep skin color goes. Your skin color doesn't make you a separate race any more than the apparent distance between you and another person makes you separate from that person. We are literally one great organism living on this planet. This planet is one living, breathing organism that sustains all life. And if we are attacking any one part of that organism, the whole organism suffers. We just look separate. We're not. And so that's where the work is. The work is to focus on that separate and to recognize, to realize the untruth of it, and go and then go back into the one. Interesting. It's an idea. So, there is no resistance in me. I let God act. And take the psalm as you will. Lord, who shall abide in thy tabernacle? Who shall dwell in thy holy hill? And then he tells you who will. People that walk uprightly and work righteously and speak the truth in their heart. Those are the people that are going to abide in the tabernacle. We already do live in the tabernacle. It's up to us to start acting like it. If the power of God is greater than the assumed power of evil, because power is not an evil, the evil is not a power in and of itself. Evil is simply a misuse of power. It is not an entity of its own. Then it is up to us to prove it. Too many people say that they believe in God, they believe that God is omnipotent and continue to demonstrate unhappiness, illness, and lack because they're waiting on God to do it for them. And that's harsh, but it's true. God can only do for us what God can do through us. So if we want a world that works for everybody, we have to do the work. We have to take into our own hands our health, our wellness, our oneness. We have obligations and responsibilities. The fact is that if they really believed it, they would prove it in their own experience. One of the reasons for failure in proving our principle is an unconscious resistance to spiritual things. Which is why I said what we need to work on is the separation. Because the separation does not exist in spiritual things. And if we continue to see that separation, we continue to lean on that separation, then we are not leaning on spiritual things. Often we are unaware that we have this resistance and thus seek alibis for our lack of good. That's his way of saying, well, we want to blame. And we want to put the blame outside of ourselves. And to some degree, there is blame outside of ourselves. But there is nothing outside of ourselves. Because there are people who believe that their good does lie in the oppression of others, in the separation of others. And those of us that can do the work should do the work to stop that. I know I sound a bit like a wild-eyed revolutionary this morning. There is a simple way of removing this block to spiritual demonstration. It is the affirming that God in people does the work. God in people does the work. but we still have to do the work. We are not the ones doing the work. God is doing the work through us, but the work still has to be done. We have to treat and move our feet. It is the knowing that infinite mind thinks through our minds at every instant, and its ideas are flowing in through us into form. So when you have those thoughts that you stop and you think, it can't be me. Yeah, it could be. It could be. We are the ones doing the work, bringing the world into form. Are we happy with the world? No. Then we need to work harder. Because we have the power to change it. Because we are channels for that power that changes the world. We are channels for that good. The righteous are those who let God work them for the accomplishment of good. When what we do benefits as many people as possible and harms none, we are doing God's work. That's the threshold. That's the threshold. Even if the only person our work does benefit is one person, as long as it harms none, it's still God's work. But if it harms anyone, it's not God's work. I believe that this is God's universe and that God's mind releases through me its perfect ideas at every instant. It's up to us to allow those ideas to come through. I believe that I am the creation of infinite mind, and therefore I am open and receptive to all ideas born of God. There is nothing in my consciousness which refutes the things of spirit. So all those ideas of separate, that refutes the idea of spirit. So those are the ones that we are obligated to work on, to let go of, to release. There is no resistance to God and God's good. I am now consciously receptive to the divine inflow of truth. I accept it, I assimilate it, I pass it on to my fellow people in joy and delight. God wants us to be happy. God wants us to be happy. And how do we share that? By passing on that message of peace and joy and delight to each other. I let God work in my mind, in my heart, and in my affairs. Okay. I probably shouldn't read deep things on the internet or on Facebook before I do these. It makes me stop and think. So, today, the mission today, should we choose to accept it, is to be consciously receptive to the divine inflow of truth. And where our work is on that idea of separate. To release it, to understand that we are one immense and infinite organism, and that we depend on each other for life, for good. And when we can work towards everyone having that good, we'll get there. I have hope. I have faith. I have knowing. And I have God's idea. So that's the mission, should we choose to accept it. All right, beloveds. I think my voice is trying to give out on me. My throat is dry, so I'm going to go get something to drink. But I am going to, as I always do, encourage you to do something loving for yourself, do something kind for yourself, do something compassionate for yourself. Simply because you deserve it. You deserve your own love, your own kindness, your own compassion. You deserve to be loved by yourself, for yourself, and for nothing more than that, for just you being you. So it is a spiritual practice, and I encourage it because I want you to create a habit a default setting, a first response, so that no matter what happens around you, to you, you can respond lovingly, kindly, and compassionately. If you can do it for yourself, you can do it for anybody. And you deserve it. You are a beloved child of God. So please, practice. Be it take 3 deep breaths. Be it go to bed early. Be it spend a little extra time in bed in the morning. We all have obligations, but you can fit it in. Go for a walk. Drink something that tastes good for the sheer pleasure of it. And that's one of the things. Sometimes we forget that we talk about guilty pleasures. Why should any pleasure be guilty? If it doesn't hurt anybody, why should it be guilty? So, in that case, because who I was listening to talk about guilty pleasures was Cake, and he says it's not a guilty pleasure. It is a pleasure. Why should I feel guilty for enjoying cake? So, all right. Okay. I am going to move on into the process of my day because we have an 11 a.m. service, so I need to go eat breakfast. I also need a drink of water. So, I encourage you to engage your mind and your body, unless it is your day of rest. I encourage you to drink plenty of water. As you can see, I need some, or you can hear, I need some. I encourage you to go get that face full of sun or that bright light early in the morning because it does reset your hormones. And I do encourage you to open the windows of your soul. Allow the breath of heaven to remind you. You do live in heaven right here, right now. It's all around you all the time. And one of the ways that we find it is to look for the good and praise it. Emma Curtis Hopkins was right. Look for the good. Praise it. And it will multiply. It's the way it works, honestly. All right, beloveds. So take care of yourself. I know it started out really cold this morning, and it's going to be pretty decent this afternoon. I mean, it is winter after all. So bundle up and have a great day, an amazing day, a wondrous day, a fantastic day, a magical day, a warm day, a comforting day, a deep thinking day, or a feathery light day. Have a good day. And if that's too much pressure, simply have a day. Because you are enough, just as you are. Because you are a beloved child of God. And it is an amazing state of grace that we live in. We don't have to earn it. But we can maximize it. We can maximize that grace by being good to one another. I'm sorry, 2 of my cats are having a conversation. It was really funny. All right, I am going to go and get some breakfast, get some water, get some breakfast so that I can get to the center for the service, which we will have right here at 11 a.m. for you on Facebook Live or in person. If you're in the area, please feel free to stop by. Outside of that, catch us on all the social medias. Reverend David should be on around 5 p.m. with you. I will be back with you at 9 a.m. We do this every day, and we do it as much for ourselves as we do it for you. And if you go to the YouTube channel, the Creative Life Spiritual Center YouTube channel, there's a whole lot on there. All right, since we got Jesse online, there's good stuff. The soul sessions, everything. I've tried to make the playlist as easy as possible. And then I have a YouTube channel, which is where I archive these. So if you want to see what I was doing a year ago, which was a different book, please check that out. And my channel is the Running Rev Ryan. So that's what I am on the social medias. And we are Creative Life Spiritual Center or Creative Life Spark on the social medias that we are on. So take care of yourself. Know that you are loved. And I will see you next time, which will be at 11 a.m. All right, beloveds. Have a wondrous day.